Well, President Trump confirmed he could speak with Vladimir Putin as soon as tomorrow.
Talking about land. It's a lot of land. It's a lot different than it was before the wars, you know. And we'll be talking about land. We'll be talking about power plants. Because that's up, you know, it's a big question. But I think we have a lot of it already discussed very much by both sides.
You'll ask him.
Ukraine and Russia.
You'll ask him.
We're already talking about that, dividing up certain assets. Yeah, and they've been working on that.
Well, guess what? State Department spokeswoman Tammy Bruce joins me this morning. Tammy, great to have you here. You, as we said earlier, were at the summit in Saudi Arabia. Where are we on a peace deal in Ukraine? Is the first step a 30-day ceasefire and then we work for more permanent peace? How's this all going to work out?
Well, first of all, with President Trump, of course, you've got the best deal maker, perhaps that the world has known. And of course, we're going to see that impact with the work already he's done and will be doing in this regard. But traveling with the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has been extremely enlightening. He is a man who is focused on the nature of getting the killing to stop. He knows, of course, what the vision of Donald Trump is in this regard. But in order to be able to talk about the result of peace, right? How we can have this be an enduring peace, not something that lasts a month or 6 months or even a year or two, is the first thing you've got to do is get them to stop killing each other. So the shooting, the killing has to stop. And that's what all of this effort has been. First in Riyadh with a Russian delegation, and then, of course, in Jeddah with the Ukrainians, working on the fact that this has to end. The world wants it to end. And this is where we've got, of course, Secretary of State Rubio doing the shuttle diplomacy, led then by President Trump and his conversations with the president of Russia to continue this forward so that Russia agrees with this ceasefire so we can get down to business.
I want to move on to this issue, Tammy. The Houthis have vowed to retaliate after President Trump launched strikes that killed, from what we understand, at least 31 terrorists. I guess the question is, are we regaining control of those shipping lanes, which they have been attacking for some time?
Yes, well, we've heard certainly from the Secretary of Defense and the President and the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, on the fact that the Houthis are pirates. They are not a recognized regime. They are not a recognized government. They are effectively holding Yemen hostage, and that's what they've been doing with the waterway there, is attacking shipping, attacking our ships over 100 times. It's been a kind of a constant death by 1,000 cuts, if you will. And people are wondering, it's like, finally, we're striking back. This has been going on for a very long time. The previous administration has done pinprick responses when they've, when the Houthis have attacked. But this is the first time that there is a real, genuine attack that is meant to have this stop. It affects the entire world, that shipping framework, where countries have had to go all the way around Africa in order to get into where it is they need to really be moving. And this is unacceptable in the civilized world. And that's what the goal is. It is not a tit for tat. This is a dynamic that is about making sure, like the rest of what the Trump agenda is, and certainly what Secretary Rubio is doing, which is to make the world safer and stronger and more prosperous, but also reasonable. This again these are pirates controlling a section of the world that affects all of us, and it's going to end, and we're going to help make it end.
While we have you, Tammy, I want to get to this. The White House is refuting claims that the administration ignored a judge's order by sending hundreds of alleged Tren de Agra gang members to El Salvador. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that the migrants had already been removed from the country and the actions do not conflict with the order. Meanwhile, she claims that federal courts generally have no jurisdiction over the president's conduct abroad. So the question, Tammy, what happens with these migrants now?
Well, obviously, Caroline Leavitt does a great job in conveying the White House position, and that I will leave that to her, as I don't work with the White House in this regard, certainly. But I think that some have said that, of course, this is a fight worth having through the courts. We've got a terrific court system, and they, I think, realize that there are arguments regarding this. The Trump agenda, the Trump White House, is determined. The American people have seen it. They're determined to fix the problems that have been foisted upon us as a nation. And this is one of those issues, clearly why he was elected and why we've got an administration now that is moving very aggressively in taking care of the nation's business. And so I look forward to what the DOJ will do and certainly the White House's further actions.
Very last one for you, Tammy. State Department has revoked the visa for a student at Columbia University. The government claims this student was, quote, advocating for violence and terrorism.
Yes.
Are there any concerns about challenges over free speech in this case, Tammy?
Well, you know, the Secretary has made it very clear that these are individuals who would never have been allowed, and that individual in particular would have never have been allowed or given a visa had he been honest about what his agenda was in this country. We remember those protests and buildings taken over, staff members unable to get out, essentially taken hostage, the Jew hatred espoused. And so in order to get into this country, you got to tell us what you're going to do here. And in this case, it's clear that if he had said what he was going to be doing, we never would have let him in the first place. So this is not about speech. This is about actions. And
Right.
Secretary Rubio's made that clear, and we're going to see that play out as well, and I think it'll be for the benefit of the American people.
Tammy Bruce, great to see you, Tammy, this
Thank
morning.
you, Ash.
Thank you for joining us. Always
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.